My name is Sunil Ryan. I lead Google Cloud for Games team here at Google, and it's an honor for me to be here today. As you can imagine and see, Google has announced some really big things this week. So I'm sure many of you attended Mobile Developer Day on Monday, and if you haven't, you should definitely check out the Tuesday keynote. We announced a big platform called Stadia. And today, for the first time, we actually have an entire day dedicated to Google Cloud developers. And we've got a fantastic lineup of speakers, both subject matter experts from Google, but more importantly, customers and partners that are going to talk about how Google Cloud is helping power their games. But before we get into the detail, I want to take a step back and talk a little bit about the trends that we're seeing and how it affects our approach in Google Cloud. You all know there has been an amazing explosion of players globally, about 2 billion, which means there's huge opportunity and the industry is growing at a tremendous rate. And this is all thanks to people like you who are, with your creativity, are building fantastic games. So that's one. So we're dealing with massive scale. Second, it's just not about players, right? The business of games took about 35 years to get to $35 billion in revenue, but then in the subsequent 12 years, or 11 years, we've added another 100 billion annually. So it's not just there are lots of players, there's a lot of money in this market, and it's kind of becoming the biggest entertainment industry out there. So that's number two, because we're seeing ways for people to monetize. Number three, what we're also seeing is with the democratization of devices, you have to reach a player base that is of different sizes and shapes and different screen sizes. And what people are starting to see is with 5G coming and low latency in different areas, AAA games or mobile games are thinking that people are going to be platform agnostic. So you need to start building for different sizes and shapes, and some of these things that we talked about even in yesterday's keynote on Stadia that you can play across different devices. Lastly, as a trend that we're also seeing is a game is just not a game anymore. It's becoming an ecosystem. You have successful games that have more developers creating content, we have social connections, and things can explode from day one. So it's really hard to forecast what's going to happen and prepare for it. And the second thing is, as a result, games' lifetime is becoming longer and longer because you have ways to update content. So the new normal pretty much right now is you need to constantly develop and iterate, and that's the new normal for building games. So these are the trends that we took into account and said, okay, how does that affect what the Google Cloud game strategy should be and how we can help developers? And after talking to a lot of you, we also heard there are 4 things that we need, taking the trends into account and what we heard from you. One, you want scale from day one if you want to be successful. You don't want any obstacles when you launch your game to say, oops, I couldn't scale, so I'm not going to be successful. So that's one. Number two, with all the different devices and with the different platforms, you want flexibility. So you can build once and deploy it in as many places as you want. Number three, you also said, I want less operational overhead. And I just want to focus on building good games. And lastly, given you never know what you can expect in terms of players, you want better ability to predict outcomes, you want better ability to forecast where players are coming from, et cetera. So predictability is becoming a core need for a lot of game developers as well. So we took this into account and said, what does Google Cloud for Games actually stand for? So one, you will hear a lot about this from us throughout the rest of the day. One, we want to enable cross-platform services and solutions. Number two, we are committed to open source. You will see in subsequent sessions that we'll talk a little bit more about how we are partnering with the industry to push the thought leadership forward. And we want to give developers choice. Number three, Google has been used to having lots of data and building analytics, predictive algorithms. Machine learning is becoming core. So you will see a lot of machine learning services from Google. And lastly, if you haven't seen the commitment, I would say for the first time we have the number of Googlers at GDC is exploding. And that's because we have a commitment for games. And what that results in is we want to bring the best of Google to you across different product areas and different solutions. And you will hear some of that later today as well. Let me dive a little bit into to say this is not just in theory. We actually have top AAA games and mobile games running on Google Cloud. This is just a sample list of games, game titles, as well as partners that we're working with, like Multiplay and Unity and Improbable, that's helping advance what cloud can do for your games. So diving a little bit deeper into our strategy, one of the things that we have committed to is giving developers choice. And a lot of things in Google Cloud, we have this platform called Kubernetes, which is based on containers. And we feel like that's something that gives choice because you can run Kubernetes on Google Cloud, on-premise, on your bare metal, as well as on other clouds. And we're just not committed to this in Google Cloud, we're committed to that in gaming in Google Cloud as well. And some of the examples that we have partnered with the industry to push the thinking on is one, we've got a project, open source project called Agones that we launched about a year ago that you'll hear more of, which automatically helps you scale your game server processes. So you don't have to worry about it, and also gives you a good dashboard of metrics on how servers are scaling up and down. We've also, again, with an industry partner, with Unity, launched OpenMatch, which is a matchmaking service. It's open source. Anybody could take and use it and put in your specific logic in to make matchmaking work. So we're just not saying open source. We are actually doing specific projects that are related to games. It's also not just that we are funding these projects, but we're also making it easy for you to access it. And as of today, you can use Agones with a simple click from the cloud marketplace and embed it into your game. So this is something that is very exciting for us and helps advance Kubernetes and game servers into the industry as well. The next part that in our strategy is we want you to get results fast and get more player insights because you want to get, improve the player experience as well as get more insight from your players. And we've partnered with lots of, sorry, I flipped the slide. Can you go back one? We've also partnered with a lot of companies, big companies which have humongous amounts of data, like 50 petabytes, with people like King and Square Enix to bring more insights about your players so you can improve the design of your game or improve the monetization of your game. On infrastructure, we also partnered very closely with massive entertainment studios. Go to the next slide, please. To help launch Tom Clancy Division 2. And this is, we have a model where our customer engineers were in the war room to make sure this launch was successful. This actually launched on Friday last week. So this is a little bit of what we talked about. And lastly, I'll finish on our strategy. We want to bring the best of Google. We want to help the game industry succeed. We want to help developers succeed. And we feel Google Cloud is the glue to those efforts. And with that, we want to work with different Google teams to bring this to life. And on that note, I'm sure you heard about Stadia yesterday. And let me bring up our next speakers who are going to discuss how Stadia and GCP and Google Cloud Platform are actually better together. Micah?
Thank you, Sunil. Good morning. I'm Micah Baker. I'm a product manager for gaming on Google Cloud, and I'm joined by my colleague Pavel, who is a product manager on Stadia. And I'm sure you would love to hear a little bit more about that exciting announcement from yesterday. And so I'm going to hand it over to Pavel to talk a little bit about Stadia, and then I'll talk about how Google Cloud and Stadia work better together.
Thank you. So Stadia was announced yesterday. Who's seen the keynote or has heard a little bit about it? Okay, fair number. So as a quick summary, Stadia is a new kind of platform. It's a cloud-based gaming platform for AAA gaming that is based on streaming. And it is a new platform that lets you build new kinds of games. But we have built it to be intuitive and work with all kinds of games. And so we're very excited about what we can bring to it. And what makes it unique, of course, is that because it is hosted in cloud and it streams, and it can connect to different devices and different endpoints without having to change the core game experience or how you build it. We're launching in 2019. And the reason this is relevant to this audience specifically for the Google Cloud is that whenever your game is running on Stadia, it's always running in a virtualized environment on a specialized VM that we call an instance. And these instances connect to the endpoints through a stream, through the internet and Wi-Fi and whatever the player is playing on. But the part that is important to remember for here is that the Stadia instances aren't generic GCP virtual machines. They are specialized, and so you will interact with them in the Stadia environment. Now, when players are playing, we take care of those instances. So once you launch your game, when players are playing, we manage all of that, so you don't have to worry about it. But when you're in development and you have your developer instances, then you will be interacting with them in our environment. And this is where some of the power of the GCP can come in, because all of the Stadia infrastructure is running on the same backbone that GCP is running. And so the connection to GCP is very fast and efficient. And to talk a little bit more about that, I'll pass it on to Micah.
Thank you. So now that you understand a little bit of the logistics of Stadia, it's interesting to compare how that fits in with the Google Cloud story. Google Cloud has a unique global private network, which is really fundamental in this better value that we're going to talk about here. So you think about all these different connections across the globe, and having a private network really matters when you want to control latency. What does this do to Stadia, for example? So when you work with Google Cloud and Stadia, that private network actually comes in very handy because we can have all the traffic local. The traffic never has to go through the internet, as you may experience through other clouds. What happens if your network traffic gets to stay local, though? What does that bring to your game and to your experience? It really comes down to these three main points. Your traffic is never exposed to the internet, so no one can mess with your traffic. The game data is going to be secure. You can count on the performance. It's predictably low latency because it's always on that private network where we can control the quality of service. It's also great value because there's no charge for egressing to the internet from the cloud. So we're really excited about the combination of Stadia and Google Cloud, and we look forward to talking more about this. This was just kind of a little sneak peek into what we're thinking. And next, I'm going to hand it over to Pavel to talk a little bit about what you can do to learn more about Stadia.
Thank you. So just to finish off this, if you would like to work with Stadia, if you have a game idea that you'd like to bring to our platform, then please head over to stadia.dev, and we'd love to hear from you. And we're taking these the applications now, and then we'll be getting back to you throughout as the rest of the year. And also come see us at our booths and demos if you actually want to check out some of the tools, how they work. We're in the West Hall for like the developer section, and the South Hall has more of the playability sections. And so you can both experience it and see what it will look like to actually build on Stadia. Thank you.
All right, so we're very excited to continue this conversation offline if you have any more questions. And next, I'd like to invite my friend Paul up from Multiplay, where we're going to talk a little bit about some of our successes in working together on scaling their games.
Thank you. Thank you, Micah. Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Manuel. I'm the Managing Director of Multiplay. Thank you to Google for asking us to come and talk today. What I'm going to be touching on is essentially what Multiplay do, to give you a little bit of context, why we work so closely with Google, and I'm going to talk about quite an exciting case study which we worked on this year. Click. Okay, just to frame it up a little bit, I think it's worth explaining a little bit about Multiplay and what we do. So we are game server hosting specialists, and believe it or not, we've been doing this for nearly 20 years now. So we have launched a lot of games, and I wouldn't say we've seen it all, but we've seen a lot. Now, we don't create games, but we do power them. So effectively, that is our calling. So a lot of you in the audience create games, but our thing is we power them through infrastructure. And it is our belief that we have a responsibility to the game players of the world when they invest either their money or their valuable time to get on a game and be able to play it quickly, fast, lag-free. And likewise, we also feel like we have an obligation to the game developers. You know, whether you're a studio of 2 people or 200 people, if you're going to invest 2 or 3 years of your life into building the most awesome game, then when it comes to launch day, you've got to make sure you get it right, and all those customers get to play your game. And that's our job. So we work hard on this, and we've been working with Google Cloud for probably getting on near 4 years now, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. Just to finish that story and finish the framing, at the tail end of 2017, Multiplay became part of the Unity family. So we're super proud to join Unity, and if you know anything about Unity, you know that they're the world-leading real-time creation platform. And they build awesome tools for creating games. But what you may not know is beyond the creation phase, as Unity, we now move into the operational phase. And this is where Multiplay sits. So we provide the infrastructure for large online multiplayer games. You'll hear soon more about the Multiplay Matchmaker. And we also have Vivox, who are similar to Multiplay. They've joined the Unity family recently, who power voice comms for some of the largest games in the world, including Fortnite and PUBG and so on. So the operational phase is something that we do a great deal of. The important message here, though, is we are engine agnostic. So at Multiplay, we will host games regardless of what engine it is, whether it's Unreal, Unity, or whatever, we work on those. So, on to cloud. Let's talk about cloud and the impact it has on the gaming industry. Well, it is true that cloud is a game changer. That's for sure. You can now do stuff that you never used to be able to do before. In the past, before cloud existed, when you came to launch a game, one of 2 scenarios would exist. You either had too much hardware and only this many players turned up, and that's an expensive situation to be in. Or, arguably even worse, you'd have this much hardware, not enough, and this many players turn up, in which case, and we've all been there, that's when you can't get into the game, the most frustrating situation to be in. And it was a very, very difficult problem to solve. And if you had that second scenario, then you'd find yourself scrambling, trying to get more servers in. Whereas cloud actually enables us to get rid of that problem completely. I'm just going to talk about 3 very typical, we've seen many, many shapes of launches, but here's a few examples. This is the one we call the highly anticipated launch. Okay, so this is the game that everybody knows it's coming. Maybe it's a first-person shooter that comes out just before Christmas every year, or it's a seasonal sports title or something like that. So you know it's coming, or maybe it's a massively hyped new IP that everybody's super excited to hear about. And along comes launch day, and that's what the peak looks like. And it looks like this pretty much every time. And that peak is massive. And it lasts for a week or 2, or maybe a month or so, and then it dies down. And then hopefully what happens is people stay engaged in the game, the people who love the game, and then you invest in it and it grows from there. So that's the anticipated launch. Next slide. We also see quite a bit of this, and we have games that we host at Multiplay exactly like this. So this is your games as a service type model. They're seasonal. They will have large DLCs or large events going on, large promotions, large tournaments, or they have seasons, and you'll see 3 or 4 spikes like this per year. The message to take away, again, it's a different shape, but what's consistent is it's very, very erratic and very spiky, and you have to have enough infrastructure to cope with each one of those spikes accurately every time. And the third example I'll give you, and possibly for me the most exciting one of all, is the game that nobody knew was going to come along, and it was a massive hit. So this is the unexpected hit. And we've seen this with PUBG, we've seen this with Fortnite, and we've seen it with the likes of Pokemon Go, and more recently Apex Legends. And I'll talk a little bit more about Apex in a minute. But what I can tell you is an extreme version of that very graph happened with Apex Legends in the first week of its launch. And this is the tough one, because this is the one when you literally have no idea how many players are going to turn up. But if a lot turn up in their millions, then you need to be absolutely sure you have the cloud and the infrastructure and the orchestration layer ready to scale into that. Okay, So on to a little bit of case study for you. As I said, we work with many, many different games. We work with Rocket League, we work with PUBG, we work with Tripwire and Killing Floor, but we have a very special relationship with our friends at Respawn. And going back a couple of years, we did the launch of Titanfall 2, and collectively, this is where we really honed our craft, I think, in terms of blending multiple clouds and bare metal infrastructure into one single fabric, enabling their matchmaker just to talk to us via a single API. So they have a game, they say we have a group of players, we're ready to go, we need a server on US West, multiplayer, can I have it? Boom, and we come back with the server. What happens behind the scenes, they don't need to know about, it's magic to them, but as you can imagine, it's a blend of multiple clouds and bare metal, but there's a lot of GCP in there as well. So Titanfall 2 was a phenomenal launch. It was flawless, all the players got to play. The game had incredible reviews, super, super high Metacritic rating. But the only shame, I guess, in some respects, is not quite as many players turned up as everybody had hoped for. However, fast forward a couple of years, and Respawn once again, in February of this year, we launched Apex. The key difference here, of course, is this game was free to play. And what actually happened is in the first 8 hours, we saw 1 million players. And then in the first 72 hours or 3 days, we saw 10 million players that we served. And within the first 4 weeks, we have saw 50 million players on this game. Each one of them, on the whole, always getting in and having a great experience in Apex Legends. And how do we prep for something like that? Well, if you can see that little video running, it's all about preparation, actually. It's about testing. This stuff doesn't happen by magic. This is us scaling up GCP in advance as a test to an enormous number we picked out of thin air, 14 million players. And if you watch the top right-hand corner, you will see that we spun up in a period of 90 minutes enough capacity to serve 14 million concurrent players in a game. We weren't expecting that amount of numbers, but we tested it in advance anyway. And what we were testing here is not just GCP's ability to scale at the pace that we needed it to. We're testing our own core infrastructure to ensure that it could take that volume of requests in that amount of time, which it did. But the real key message to take away from here is test in advance, okay? So as amazing as Google Cloud is, or any cloud, and as amazing as our orchestration layer is that I love to talk about, you still have a matchmaker, it still needs to work in the right way, it needs to be stress tested. One of the great things about working with a studio such as Respawn, if you've ever played any of their games, you will see that they are meticulous in everything they do. And I can tell you from first-hand experience, they are meticulous at their testing as well. So test in advance, make sure you're ready, work with a partner, so when it comes to that day, having worked for all those years of building your game, you are ready for launch and things work and players get in. And that can make or break a game. And I can tell you when it goes wrong, Twitter lights up, because I follow the term server on Twitter, and I know what it looks like when things go wrong, and Twitter lights up, and it will be in the thousands of people. Well, I can tell you in the launch of Apex Legends, Twitter was very quiet. In fact, what was wonderful about it is we saw a whole bunch of tweets about people saying, wow, has this game just launched to this many players with no server problems? And that was a lovely, lovely thing to see. So, with Apex Legends, we went from 0 to hitting over 2 million concurrent players in the first 7 days. We span up in GCP 6,500 VMs, and these are big VMs, by the way. These are meaty machines, and that was across 53 locations globally. And the vast majority of the game was in Google Cloud. So, why do we work so closely with Google? Well, actually, there's a number of reasons, and I've called out 4 here. Winding back to when we first looked at cloud, we benchmarked, and we still to this day use multiple clouds, but we benchmarked Google, and one of the things that our engineers loved was actually it was very simple to use. In fact, in their words, they thought they had the gold standard of documentation. And what it meant is we had no experience in Google Cloud, and within a very short space of time, we were up and running with very little help from them in the sense that their documentation was excellent. The other thing is scale, of course. Google are continuing to invest not only in their phenomenal network, but in terms of the amount of data centers they have around the world, and they continue that investment today. So we get global coverage. Performance was the big one, though. What we really, really cared about is from making a request to a server, how quickly can we get that server back? You can imagine when you're scaling from 0 to 2 million concurrents, you need to be sure that you're getting virtuals back very, very quickly. With Apex Legends, we will get a server back from a cold request to up, run, and booted in less than 2 minutes. And then we do a little bit of multiplayer magic on top of that, and then the server is in the pool ready to be used. To be super clear there, no player waits for 2 minutes. So our algorithms at multiplayer is constantly tracking the rate of change to ensure that we have servers up and running and warm, ready to go as soon as the request comes in, so players are in an instant. But yeah, incredible performance. And then the last one, which you rarely hear people talk about when they talk about cloud, is the people, actually. So we've had a phenomenal partnership with Google from day one, and even when multiplayer was a lot smaller than what it is today, they really looked after us in terms of testing stuff, doing unusual stuff, making sure everything worked. And in the launch of Apex Legends, again, we were able to scale to phenomenal amounts of VMs in a short amount of time, and that's because we had Google Cloud working very, very closely with us to make sure we were well prepared for this project. So the partnership in terms of the people is absolutely key. So final kind of wrap up for me really is, I guess, for you guys, you know this, making games is a very, very difficult thing to do. So it would be great if you just had one less thing to worry about. And for me, I think it's the infrastructure. So if there's one thing you take away from this talk today, is that we know that creativity is the beating heart of any game studio. But you don't need to worry about the infrastructure logistics. Those problems have been solved by companies like us many, 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 many times over. Okay, and here's a quote from John Sharing from Respawn. He says, for the launch of Apex Legends, it was critical both that we showed the scale of our servers up, we could scale our servers up to handle whatever size audience showed up, and that those servers were reliable. We continued our partnership with Multiplay to leverage their multi-cloud autoscaler so we can focus on developer time on the game itself and not on keeping the game servers running. That's absolutely key. John Sharing, not just from Respawn, but from Call of Duty, Infinity War, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, and all those games. These are very experienced people, and they've made the decision, actually, let's let someone else look after the infrastructure. We'll concentrate on the game. That's it for me. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand back to Micah.
Thank you, Paul. One of my favorite things about multiplayer is the people. Technology is great, but people are what make the relationships work, and multiplayer excels at relationships, so we're really pleased to work with them. I also wanted to mention that one of the benefits of using, for example, multiplayer or hosting games on GCP in general, along with Stadia, is that you're in a perfect position to be cross-platform. So you'll be able to host your game servers in one place and service all the different screens that you want to get your game to. So it's my pleasure to invite our next speaker up, Rami Ishmael, who will be talking to us about our developers and global diversity.
Hi. As a game developer, you quickly come to realize that play is a global language. It is something that people understand regardless of their culture, their language, or their heritage. If you put a ball on the ground, no matter where in the world you are, and you kick it towards somebody, you'll find that they kick it back. Over the past decade or so, I've traveled around the world to meet and assist game developers that work in the widest possible variety of circumstances, from developers that work in the ice-cold north in a month-long night to developers that are making games on a cliff overlooking the plains of Africa. And during those travels, I've always aimed to assist developers with the challenges unique to their country, access to knowledge, to experience, to press, funding, and to technology. And it has been my career goal to democratize access to our technology, to our libraries of knowledge, and to our industry. To further that goal, a group of talented games industry members and myself have founded GameDev.world, which is an online, live-streamed, multilingual games conference. And as we gather here in San Francisco, it is worth considering the privilege and opportunity that events like the Game Developers Conference offer creators that are Western or that speak English, or that have economical access to these events. So from June 21st until June 23rd, GameDev.world will live stream for free game developer talks in 8 major languages of the world: English, French, Spanish, Brazilian Portuguese, Japanese, simplified Chinese, Russian, and Arabic. Speakers from all over the world, speaking in their native tongues, will share their knowledge, perspectives, and stories, and for the first time in the history of the games industry, will be able to share that knowledge across the language barrier through live subtitling. The internet was touted as a globally connective technology, a technology that would allow us to reach beyond our cities, to speak across our borders, and to create for global audiences. It has achieved many of those goals, but many challenges and opportunities remain. So as we advance through 2019, it is critical to acknowledge that major technologies don't support non-Latin languages in their software or websites, that global often means everywhere but Africa, and that inclusivity is often a shortcut for inclusivity for those who speak English. It is important to realize that through technology, diversity, and proactive efforts, we can challenge and defeat many of those notions, if only we consider that the internet is larger than the Latin alphabet, that access to high-speed internet is still not ubiquitous, and that language and access are some of the largest invisible privileges all of us in this room share. We've seen the internet connect players all over the world to play games together despite not sharing a language. We've seen how global communities solve problems together, create beautiful content in games together, and play together despite never meeting. The games industry has pioneered ways of play, ways of connectivity that are unrestrained by language and universal in their reach. So as I travel the world to meet the game development community in emerging territories, sometimes half a dozen creators, sometimes hundreds of them, I see how open source technology and free tool sets have democratized our industry. I see how knowledge sharing takes a little bit of time, but affects thousands of careers and lives across the world. I see how community translation makes information available in one language available in another. And I've seen how making issues of access and issues of opportunity more visible through the internet has enabled our industry to respond to challenges we would otherwise be entirely unaware of. At GameDev.world, we think about those truths as we prepare for the event. We're optimists about the potential of technology in the world. We are optimists about the role of the internet as connective tissue between humans. We're optimists about equalizing opportunity and access through the networks that already exist. And we believe that progress is both to dream about what isn't possible yet and to critically examine what is available to only a few of us. We have found those same values and that same enthusiasm and optimism in the Google Cloud team. We are extremely grateful for their support as a diamond sponsor for GameDev.world. Our goal is to, even if just for one moment, shatter the language barrier and show the medium and industry of games as it truly is, a global force, a universal language, not constrained by the language we speak, the place we are born, or the access we have. As the GameDev.world team works to present the first ever International Games Conference, we hope that you will sign up for the conference at GameDev.world and that you will join us live on the internet on June 21st. Thanks so much.